The scent of gardenias used to be my favorite smell. Now it makes me want to scream. It's the scent of the perfume she leaves trailing through my hallways like a toxic fog. I stood in my own kitchen, gripping a porcelain mug so hard I thought it might shatter, watching a woman I've never met fold her silk lingerie on my dining table. She looked up, gave me a thin, tight smile, and said the words that would haunt my sleep for weeks. "Don't mind me, Elena. After all, I was here first. This house was meant to be mine anyway."
And while I'm getting started, don't forget to subscribe. This is where we'll find the wildest family dramas, real-life revelations, and stories you won't be able to tear yourself away from.
My name is Elena. I'm the kind of woman who believes in peace, in compromise, and in the sanctity of a home. For 7 years, I've built a life with Mark. I supported him when his startup flopped. I stayed up until 3 a.m. editing his presentations, and I poured every cent of my inheritance into the down payment of our forever home, a beautiful, sprawling Victorian on the edge of town. I thought I was the queen of my castle. I didn't realize I was just a placeholder for the ghost of his past. Mark is a good man, or so I told myself. He's gentle, soft-spoken, and avoids conflict like the plague. But silence isn't always peace. Sometimes silence is a lie. The nightmare began on a Tuesday. I came home from a long shift at the hospital to find a mountain of designer luggage in the foyer. Mark was standing there, looking pale, rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous habit he has. And then she stepped out of our guest room. Chloe, the one that got away. The woman Mark was engaged to 10 years ago, the one who broke his heart and left for Europe without a word. She was taller than me, thinner, and radiated an effortless elegance that made me feel like a messy intruder in my own house. "Elena, honey, listen," Mark started, his voice trembling.
"Chloe's parents lost their house in the bankruptcy. She has nowhere to go. Her credit is ruined, and she's going through a hard time. It's just for a few weeks." "A few weeks?" I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Mark, you didn't even call me. You didn't ask." Chloe stepped forward, the smell of gardenias hitting me like a physical blow. "Oh, Elena, don't be like that. Mark felt he owed me. Technically, we picked out the blueprints for a house just like this back in the day. It feels so familiar, like I'm finally home." I looked at Mark, waiting for him to defend me, to say, "No, this is Elena's home. She paid for it." But he just looked at the floor. "She's family, in a way, Elena. My mom always said she was like a daughter to her." That was the first red flag. The second was the group chat. Within 24 hours, my phone started exploding. Mark's sister, Sarah, and his mother, Lydia, had formed a WhatsApp group titled Chloe's Homecoming. Sarah: "So glad she's safe. Mark, you're a hero. Family sticks together, even the family we almost had." Lydia: "It's only right. That girl has suffered so much. Elena dear, be a sweetheart, and make sure she has the extra soft pillows. She has a delicate neck." I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. I was the wife. I was the one who paid the mortgage. I was the one who hosted every Thanksgiving and took Lydia to her doctor's appointments. Yet in an instant, I was being relegated to the role of a maid for the woman who once discarded my husband. The first week was a slow-motion car crash. Chloe didn't act like a guest. She acted like a mistress of the house. She rearranged my spice rack because the flow was wrong. She used my expensive La Mer face cream. But the worst part was the
psychological warfare. I'd walk into the living room and find her and Mark looking at old photo albums. "Remember this, Marky?" She'd giggle, leaning her head on his shoulder. "The summer in Tuscany? You promised we'd go back." Mark would glance at me, guilty, but he wouldn't pull away. "Yeah, Chloe, it was a long time ago." "Not that long," she'd whisper. The internal monologue in my head was a constant loop of leave, throw her out, scream, but I was gaslit at every turn. When I confronted Mark in our bedroom, he called me insecure and uncharitable. "She's literally homeless, Elena. Do you want her on the street? Where is your compassion? You have everything, the house, the marriage, the career. She has nothing. Can't you just be the bigger person?" Being the bigger person is a trap. It's a cage designed to keep you quiet while people walk all over you. The tension escalated on our anniversary. I had booked a table at the best restaurant in town. I put on my favorite red dress, the one Mark always said made me look like a movie star. I walked downstairs, expecting my husband to be waiting with a bouquet. Instead, I found him at the kitchen island, helping Chloe zip up a dress. Her dress, a slinky black number that left nothing to the imagination. "What is this?" I asked, my voice cold as ice. "Oh, Elena," Chloe said, spinning around. "Mark told me you guys were going to the Gables. I told him I haven't had a decent meal in months. He said I should come along. It'll be a celebration." "It's our anniversary, Mark," I said, ignoring her. Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. "Elena, she's been so depressed lately. I couldn't just leave her here eating a sandwich while we have lobster. It's just one dinner. We can celebrate us anytime." I didn't go. I turned around, went back upstairs,
Slammed the door, and listened to the sound of my husband's car pulling out of the driveway with another woman in the passenger seat. I sat in the dark, the silence of the house feeling like a heavy shroud. That was the night the sadness turned into something else. It turned into a cold, hard resolve. I started looking into things. I'm a nurse. I know how to be meticulous. I began by checking the mail. I found a letter addressed to Chloe from a law firm. It wasn't about bankruptcy. It was about a settlement. My heart thudded. I opened it. Chloe wasn't broke. She had received a massive inheritance from her grandmother 6 months ago. She wasn't homeless. Anana was a predator. She had sold her own apartment at a profit and moved in here to reclaim Mark and my house. The next day, I received a text from Sarah, Mark's sister. It was meant for Chloe, but she sent it to me by mistake. "Sarah, is he falling for it yet? Mom says once Elena gets fed up and leaves, you can finally take your rightful place. Mark always belonged with you. Just keep acting fragile." I felt a strange calmness wash over me. The betrayal was complete. It wasn't just Chloe. It was the whole family. They were using my kindness, my money, and my home as a playground for their nostalgia. I didn't confront them immediately. I played the part. I became the perfect hostess. I made Chloe her favorite tea. I smiled at Lydia, but behind the scenes, I was talking to a lawyer. Since I had used my inheritance for the house and kept the deed in my name only, a move my father had insisted on, I held all the cards. The climax happened on a Sunday afternoon. The whole family was there for a welcome home brunch for Chloe. Lydia was at the head of my table. Sarah was pouring mimosas, and Chloe was wearing my
grandmother's vintage brooch, which she had borrowed from my jewelry box without asking. Mark was beaming, looking at Chloe as she told a story about their college days. "You know," Lydia said, tapping her glass, "it feels so right having us all together. Elena, you've been such a good sport, but maybe it's time we talk about the long term. Chloe needs stability. We were thinking, the guest house in the back, if you could just renovate it for her." I stood up. The room went silent. "I have a better idea," I said, my voice steady and clear. I pulled a stack of envelopes from my pocket and set them on the table. One for Sarah, one for Lydia, one for Mark, and a very special one for Chloe. "What's this, honey?" Mark asked, frowning. "It's a guest list," I said. "A list of people who are no longer welcome in my home. And Chloe, it includes a copy of your bank statement from the offshore account you forgot to mention. You aren't bankrupt. You're a squatter." Chloe's face went gray. I don't know what you're talking about." "And Sarah," I turned to his sister, "next time you plot to replace a wife, make sure you don't send the blueprints to her phone. I've seen the texts." Lydia bristled. "Now see here, Elena, this is family business. You can't talk to us like—" "This isn't your family, Lydia," I snapped. "This is my house. My name is on the deed. My money pays the taxes. And as of 10 minutes ago, I've signed the papers to put this property on the market." Mark stood up, panicked. "You did what? Where are we going to live?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't love him anymore. I loved a version of him that didn't exist. I loved a man who would have protected me. "I don't know where you are going to live, Mark," I said, "but you have 2 hours.
Or help your family pack their things. The locks are being changed at 5 p.m. I've already moved my things into a rental by the coast." The fallout was nuclear. Mark cried, he begged, he claimed he was confused and manipulated. Lydia called me a cold-hearted monster. Sarah tried to delete the texts, but I had already printed them out and sent them to her husband. But as I watched them scramble to pack their things, as I watched Chloe drop her fragile act and snarl at me like a cornered animal, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I realized that being the bigger person doesn't mean enduring abuse. It means being big enough to walk away from people who see your kindness as a weakness. I ended up selling the house for a massive profit. I moved to a small cottage by the sea, where the only scent in the air is salt and cedar. No gardenias. Mark tried to call me a few months later. He was living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with Chloe and his mother because Chloe's inheritance was tied up in a legal battle with her ex-husband in Europe. He sounded tired. He sounded broken. I didn't pick up. I just blocked the number.